Welcome to Chasman's Coffee, which was inspired by my friends about all the things I love: coffee, cycling, road and mountain, audio, food. Those are the things I love. So today I have in front of me a Nuova Simonelli MCF grinder, which I have going to sell to one of my close friends because I have upgraded, and I'll show you my other grinder on another video. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a nice cleanup for him, so I thought it might be a good opportunity to do a tear down of this particular unit. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take off and clean the burrs, and I'm going to tear down the doser mechanism here and show you how this whole mechanism comes apart if it ever needs to. You never need to take it apart to clean it or repair it, those kinds of things. So I'm going to take this off here, and what I'm going to start with is taking off this top screw in here with it's got small Phillips. I'm going to take that off, put it aside, and this is the little wheel that comes off the top. Inside there's a plate. So I'm just going to pop that. You lift it up from the top and lift it up like so. It lifts out. It's got a little tab on it here that sits inside, and then that's bolted in. So next thing I need to do is I need to turn this on its back. Use that there. And there's 4 screws on the back. So what we need to do is we need to remove this portafilter holder here to get at these 2 screws to take this bottom plate off. So I'm going to undo these 2 here. There's 2 top ones. You don't need to undo them all the way, just enough to get it out of the body. Same as 2 more on the bottom. I've kind of taken some of them out just a little bit. There we go, and that should pop off. Now I can pop this off, and there's a small little bolt under here that's kept in place from turning 2 little channels. So I'll just switch the screwdriver over. And we're going to take this off. Make sure it's unplugged, of course, before you do any of this work. So that comes off, there's a little nut there, and there's that. So this piece here now can come off. So now I can get at these 2 screws here. I take this plate off. They're just tiny, so try to be careful not to drop them anywhere. There's that one there. They're both the same size. Take that one out too. There we go. Now this plate comes in. You don't need to take this bolt off first. There we go, now that plate's off. So next one we need to do now is remove this bolt and pull out the dosing mechanism. So here we have a spring here. So you got to be careful, is right in here. There's a little piston with that clicks in here, and there's a spring behind it. So when you take this out, this could fall out, and there is another one in there as well. So I'll just get a pair of pliers. Hold on to the top here, give it a turn. That shouldn't be too tight. It doesn't need to be very tight when you put it back together again. And there's also a spring in here, so you want to hold this in place so it doesn't come popping off when you go to take it off. So we have that washer. So I'm going to slowly take that out and just lay it down here like this. And there's a spring in here. I'm going to pull this. There's the doser and this spring. And I'll show you here. I'll just pull this out. This little I don't even want to call it. And there's a spring in there as well. So I'm going to put that back, keep it in place. And if you ever, and so this piece here as well, this mechanism here, in my case, it actually I got out of position somehow. But it's the same idea. Inside here, there's another spring inside there. So be careful if you move it past that point that you might lose that spring. So I've already pre-cleaned this. So this is all nice and clean. So put it back together again. I'll slide this in place. No, actually, you know what? This comes out first. I'm gonna leave it there. Going to put this back in place here. This is a bit tricky. I use something like the plate here to hold this in place. And there we go. That spring's back in place. And now I've got to put this spring back in. So the easier way to do this is to take this guy out. Put this spring back in. That's where it gets a bit tricky. Actually, you know what I'm going to put this back in first. And then I'm going to put this spring in. And kind of work around that. So you need to get this spring in behind this guy. There, like so. There we go. And then we're going to need to put this back in. So this is where it gets a bit tricky. So this goes in this way. So I'm going to press this in. So I'm going to get it in to where that little piston is. I'm going to press the piston back into, oops, there you go. Like I say, you got to be careful. So it popped out. Just going to grab that, put that guy back in again. Put the spring back in. Grab this guy, press it in. Just hold that in place. And then press that doser piece back down and through without letting this come out of place. Like I say, this is the part that gets a bit tricky. There we go. So now I put this washer back on. Get this nut in place. Start to thread that back on. There we go. Be too tight. There we go. All back in order. So now start putting it back together. This goes back in here like this. There's only one way it goes on, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Screwdriver, 2 small screws that hold that in place. So this one here. They're tiny, so they're a bit finicky to deal with. There we go. Turn that one in. Again, it doesn't need to be too tight. Same with this top one. There we go. We can put the portafilter hanger back in. There's a little channel here, so you just got to feed this, maybe get a little bit of a turn. It'll show up. I'll just drop, oh, gotta put it the right way. Drop that in place. Grab my screwdriver. And thread that back in. There we go. There, just snug that up a little bit. Now we can put the back plate on. Make sure you haven't done anything here too much. Put that back in place. No wire sticking out. And screw these back in. Again, you don't need to be too tight. Same on these two. There we go. I can flip this back up. There we go. So now I need to put this guy back on. Just drop that on. Line it up with the, oh, sorry, before we do that, gotta put this plate in. This little tab here, there's a little section for it to pop into when you put it back in. There we go, snaps into place. Drop this on top. Grab this screw. Drop it in. And make sure it's lined up with the other fins. There you go, back in place, all nice and clean. So the other thing I'll do is I'm gonna pop off get to the burrs. So there's your chute here that comes out from the burrs. So I'm just gonna flip over to a Phillips screwdriver. It's 3 Phillips screws that hold this guy in place, this plate. So sometimes you need to clean out the go, and then this just pops off. The screw's not out quite far enough. Now I have already cleaned this, taken this apart and cleaned it. So that's that. I did replace the burrs on this a few years ago, so they're in pretty good shape. There we go. So there's the top plate with the 3 screws in it. So there's the top burr there, 3 screws, and the 3 burr, and here's the other set of burrs with 3 screws. So I have taken this burr out before. It's a bit tricky because it does, when you go to replace them, you got to kind of pry that up a little bit, so it's a bit difficult. So clean this out with a vacuum cleaner, get in here with a small little thing of some kind to clean out inside there, clean out the chute, and there you go, you can pop the plate back on again. Drop in the 3 screws. Oh, one thing you want to check for too when you go to put this back on is if there's any buildup here of coffee grinds here. So you want to clean that all out as well before you put it back on. Pop that back on there. 3 screws. So kind of just get it snug to start. And you can kind of now tighten them down. Kind of work your way around so it kind of seats itself properly. And you shouldn't really need to adjust very much once you're got that all back in place, because this is, up against something hard. There's your adjustment screw, so when you put everything back together, you should be good. So to clean out the chute here, I use a little vacuum cleaner, and I actually use like a wooden chopstick, which I thought worked really well to clean that out all in there, and put hopper back in place. Actually, I cleaned the hopper all out too, so just as well inside here, this hopper piece, this distribution, this will come off as well. If you want to get in here and clean it, so there's a screw here and a screw here that you can take out, and that'll pop off. You can clean it, put it back in. So there you have it. Grinder all put back together, all nice and clean. To find a new home, grind up some new fresh beans. So my next episode, I think, will be setting up my new grinder that I received. I love it. It looks really nice. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.